The moment that I accidentally referred to my business as a ministry in a recent podcast episode, I almost edited that part out. Not because I don't believe it, but because I think it scared me a little bit. It was a little overwhelming. But I started reading a book a couple of weeks ago that has been on my business TBR for a little while. Just kind of been sitting there on the shelf waiting for me to make the time to pick it up and read it. And I finally did, and I realized that I think God is trying to have a deeper conversation with me about what my business really is and how he views it. And while I thought that this book might inspire an episode of the podcast or maybe even a whole month, I think God is having a deeper conversation with me and maybe with you too. So this summer, we're going to be doing something a little bit different here on the podcast. Instead of talking about productivity and growth and all of that specifically, we're going to be leaning into a different topic. And that is, what does godly leadership look like as a business owner? So this is going to be largely inspired by the book that I'm reading, which I will tell you in a minute. Obviously, I will be bringing the Bible into it as well, and just kind of giving you my thoughts as I'm reading this. And I would love to hear your thoughts back as you're hearing the things that I'm saying, the quotes and the topics that I'm talking about based on what I'm reading in this book. But also, if you want to get a copy of the book and read along with me, and like we can have this conversation together, I would love that. So the book I'm talking about is called, and you can see already, I'm only a few chapters in so far, and I've got so many tags in this book. But it's called Leadership Not by the Book. It's by the CEO and founder of Hobby Lobby, David Green. From what I've seen so far in this book, we get really specific and practical. And I know it might feel like, is it really going to be relatable? And so far for me, it's beyond relatable. It's gotten me thinking about things in ways that, like, some of them I have maybe subconsciously thought of, but not to the intentionality that I am right now. But I want to start with the Bible first. I always want to start with the Bible first because while David Green seems to be a great example of what Christian business leadership looks like, obviously God's word is always going to be better. But before I dive into all of this, if this type of series where we really dive into a specific topic or even kind of sink our teeth into a certain book, or just the idea of talking about faith and our business together and what it means to really merge them and allow them to be one entity instead of trying to keep them separate like we so often do. If this kind of conversation is something that you enjoy or find interesting and insightful, please take a minute, subscribe to the channel, like this video, start a conversation with me. I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of all this stuff with you guys, especially this summer. But most importantly, share this first video so that we can all have this conversation together and grow together as godly leaders. So we're going to start with a couple of Bible verses, and you're going to have to bear with me for a second because I did not put bookmarks in any of this. I do have I don't know if you can see that over my computer. I do have my tabbies. I ended up buying some because I realized that I have spent so much time using the mobile app for the Bible that I am starting to forget the order. Like I can sit and go through Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges. I could do it that way, but I don't want to have to do that every time just to figure out where the verse. Anyways, so I added those in. But it might still take me a second to pull up the passages that I researched that I want to look at here. But I want to just talk about the way that leadership is discussed in the Bible. And not just that, but this first chapter in David's book is specifically talking about our uniqueness in how we are called to be leaders and be business owners. And I think this is such a great kind of transition, accidental, providential, whatever you want to call it, from what we were talking about last month, talking about a calling, because obviously for most of us, our business feels like a calling. We believe that it is a calling. And even if it feels like it happened kind of organically and accidentally, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a calling. I mean, I think, we talked about last month how, a calling is an interruption and whatever. It's definitely a sacrifice and all of that. And our businesses fit the bill. It doesn't mean that every business is a calling necessarily, but it certainly can be. So I want to just read really quick from Ephesians, and I am going to be reading probably all of it from the NLT this time around. So Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we can do the good things he planned for us long ago. I love this passage in particular because it's showing us that even though things might feel, like I was just saying again a second ago, organic, somewhat accidental. I mean, the first business that I ever started completely happened on accident. I've told this story many times, so I'm not going to get into a ton of detail on it, but my first business that I ever started was as a voice teacher, as a singing coach. And I hadn't even really thought of that as like something I could do as a business, even though I had taken voice lessons like most of my life. It just never dawned on me for whatever reason. And it just kind of started organically happening and got to the point where by the time I kind of walked away from that business, I had like 50 students in my studio and I was supporting myself with voice teaching. So that wasn't something I ever planned on or thought was possible. But the reality is that God always knew, right? I mean, what did this just say? We can do the good things he planned for us long ago. He knows all of the different iterations, all of the pivots that we are going to make in our business. And they all have a purpose in our journey, right? They all have a reason, something they're teaching us, something they're showing us that prepares us for what we're ultimately meant to do. So I bring that up because of what I know is coming up in this chapter. So bear with me, but just put a pin in that in your mind that it's important, okay? There's also Psalm 139, 13 to 14. I'm not going to pull that one up because I can paraphrase it for you. It's the basically that you knit me together in my mother's womb. You created my inmost being. It's talking about the intimacy with how God knows us and who we are and our abilities and our challenges and all of those things, that God truly knows who we are. So if God is putting us in a position to step forward in faith in a business venture or whatever it might be, he knows our capabilities. He knows where he will need to support us along the way. And we've already talked in the past about how he is always with us, especially when he calls us to do something. So I want to jump to Romans real quick. And this is going to be Romans 12. So if you've got your Bible following along, Romans 12, 4 through 6. One more page. Just as our bodies have many parts and each part has a special function, so it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body, and we all belong to each other. In his grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you are a teacher, teach well. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it is giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibilities seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. Okay, so I read through 8 there because I felt like there was just more to be said than ended in 6. This is super important to what we're going to be talking about today because we have a tendency, I have a tendency, let me just personalize this. I have a tendency, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that, to compare my experience and my journey with that of other business owners around me, and to look at what other people have achieved or accomplished that maybe is my goal, that is what I am working for, and to feel jealousy for that, I think, is very common, especially in this day where social media is literally everywhere. So we see these other business owners and we see them having these businesses that we want, this level of success that we're working towards. We spend a lot of time comparing. And I just love that this particular passage is highlighting that we each have our own unique skill sets, our own unique abilities, and the talents that we were given to further God's mission and to spread his love and spread his word. And what that means is that as we lean into those strengths and we struggle with those challenges, our business, our journey is naturally going to look different than everybody else. So we're going to dive deeper into that. Let me just read one more passage before we get into quotes and thoughts. And I obviously have notes here. I don't know if you can actually see my laptop and screen, but if you can't, it's right here because I have lots of notes from this. But the last passage we're going to look at is 1 Peter 4:10, and it kind of just builds on the last passage. It says, God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another. God has always had a plan for our journey and what our version of success is meant to look like. He absolutely knows every little thing about us. He knows us better than we know ourselves. And each of us is created differently with different gifts, and we're meant to lead into those gifts, not worry about doing what other people are doing that, you know, is giving them success, because if it's not our skill set, we're literally fighting an uphill battle for no reason. Leading into the book, so there's a couple of quotes that really caught my attention. This particular thing that David said in the very beginning, I mean, this is like in the introduction, it's not even in chapter 1. It's one of those quotes that I almost want to like print out and hang on my wall, so that when I'm having one of those days when I am comparing myself to other people and obviously I am losing, right? I can refer to and just look at and just remind myself. I'm not a huge mantra girl. Like, I don't necessarily have like certain phrases that I repeat to myself. But this, if I was going to have one, I think this might be one of them. So the quote, what he said was, God rarely chooses to duplicate what he's already done. Let that sink in for a minute. God rarely chooses to duplicate what he's already done. Like, I almost feel like this topic, this concept could be its own series. I think about how much time we waste looking at, you know, someone else's paper, watching what they're doing, taking notes, analyzing, reverse engineering, all the things, trying to figure out what is the secret sauce that they are using, this magic formula that is giving them their success. And, you know, I got to be honest, like, a lot of business mentors out there and coaches and whatever, they feed into this concept. It's something that has bothered me for so long. And I don't think, let me just be clear, I don't think that they are doing it with any kind of malicious intent. I think that they honestly believe they have found some magic formula that is going to work for everyone because it works consistently for them. But here's the reality. You may find a specific formula, a specific strategy that works for you consistently and is repeatable and, you know, helps to grow your business and all of that. And that's fantastic. And some version of that might help somebody else as well. But, and I don't even know if this is still out there right now, because I think I've curated it out of my feed because I don't click on anything like this anymore. But there was a time when I was transitioning from voice lessons, which was a largely in-person business, and very word of mouth. Like, advertising wasn't really a thing. I didn't really do a whole lot of marketing. It just kind of, like I said, it was very organic. I was transitioning from that into the online space and trying to figure out, this was the biggest part for me, as I was trying to figure out what my niche was, like who I was specifically trying to talk to and what I brought to the table that was different than everybody else. You know, all of that stuff. And I can't even tell you how many times I bought into, sometimes in a free challenge setting and sometimes with actual money, bought into somebody's exact blueprint or their formula for success and followed it to a T. And these are people who are successful. Like I literally can't sit here and say, well, this strategy doesn't work, it's bogus, because it's obviously working for them, right? You see them growing and consistently growing, and other people maybe getting some of the same results or similar results to what they're getting. But for me, I mean, I have literally like copy pasted the same words and just kind of tweaked them just a tiny bit so that it fit my business instead of their business, right? Which is what they're basically telling you to do. I have posted at the level of frequency that they're talking about, making myself exhausted and insane trying to keep up with a pace that is not natural to me, just because I think that it's some guarantee that I'm going to have the same results that they do. But I mean, if there's anything I've learned as a business owner over the last too long, especially though the last like 5 or 6 years, it's that there is no one strategy. There just isn't. There are a lot of different things that work, but most of the time you have to kind of break the mold a little bit. And yeah, in some cases follow best practices, and in others just blow them out of the water and do your own thing and show up in your own way. And that's when you tend to find success, not when you just follow somebody else's strategy to a T. And to do that is such a waste of time and effort and energy. And, I get it. There's no judgment here because I've certainly done it more than once. And even though I never got the results, not only did I not get the results that the other person was getting that I was expecting to get, but in most cases, I didn't get results, period. I got nothing. And it's because it wasn't authentic. It wasn't me. Instead, what I was doing was literally trying to plug and play into their formula, but that's because that's what they were telling me to do, right? I wasn't realizing, or I guess trusting, that my uniqueness and the way that I was created is special for a reason, and that I need to understand and listen to God when it comes to how He is guiding me to lead my business and how He is guiding me to market my business. So I think for me, when, I think I recognized that a while ago, and that's kind of when I started finding the success that I have now, which I'm not trying to say it's massive, but for me, it was a lot of growth that happened quickly once I started kind of clicking into what works for me, which I have to say I'm very grateful means very little social media for my business, because personally, I cannot stand using social media or being on social media for my business. So I'm very grateful that that is such a small piece of the puzzle of what worked for me. But for you, places like Instagram, Facebook might be exactly what works for you in a certain way. And that's fantastic. So I loved this reminder, and I feel like it is such a godly viewpoint on this, because it's such a reminder that, yeah, we're uniquely and wonderfully made. And there's a reason for that. We're not meant to be cookie cutter. And when you start to see people who are following the same strategies over and over again, you start to recognize it, and it makes them, at least for me, it makes them less interesting. I even see a lot of the podcasters out there who are seemingly following the same playbook as each other, and it shows. And, so they end up, and I guess to be fair, a lot of them are, their niche, their genre is talking about current events. So obviously you're going to see lots of people talking about the same topics, but I start to see them talk about them in the exact same way and having very similar opinions, which feels less authentic to me. And so it's made me less and less interested in watching them and seeing what they have to say. And that's not the point of what they're trying to do, and it's not the point of what you and I are trying to do either. So the second quote, and this is kind of like the difference. This is where I think we're really set apart. Most of the businesses that are in my feed right now, the people who are trying to teach you how to be a business owner, and honestly, the most successful people in my feed, are not specifically building kingdom-based business. They are not building faith-based businesses. doesn't mean they don't have faith. It's just not something they're leading with. And so that's where I feel like their path absolutely differs from mine and from yours. But this quote from chapter 1 says, God wants to use your business, your company, your organization, your group, whatever it is that you're doing for kingdom purposes, which is easy to forget. It's easy to forget that success for us doesn't mean profit. It doesn't mean income. Now, that doesn't mean that those things are not important or that they're bad, that we shouldn't work towards them. Obviously, unless you're running a nonprofit, which is totally different, if you are running a business, then obviously profit is important. Income is important. Otherwise, you're not running a business. You have a hobby that you sometimes make a little money from. They're two different things, and neither one is bad, but they're two different things. If you are running a business, then yeah, income is important. But your business, by definition of the fact that you are a Jesus follower, it makes your business a ministry. And I think that was the moment when I accidentally said that when I was filming last month, one of those episodes last month, that it came out of my mouth so naturally because I wasn't really thinking about it. But then once it did, it really overwhelmed me, because the gravity of something that I'm doing being so impactful, right? It's not just about what happens here on earth. It's not about whether or not I can support myself or someday hire employees and support them and their families and all of that. It's not about that. It's so much more than that. It's about eternity. But while it brings this level of responsibility, I think for me, it also brings a layer of relief. And I think that's because when I view my business as the ministry that it can be, that it is, and not just a business, not just a pet project, something that I love and am passionate about, it helps me to see how God is partnering with me in that, and that he's going to bless it when I am listening to his guidance and following the path he's putting in front of me. It makes me feel less alone. As a solo business owner, I am alone, right? That is kind of the point. And in a lot of ways, I love that because I get to make all the decisions. I don't have to fight things through with people. But that also means that it can be really lonely. It can be really challenging. And there's nobody to kind of carry the weight, unless I recognize that this is also a ministry and that God is carrying the weight. What's that verse about? My yoke is easy and my burden is light. It's not because the burden is actually light. It's because we're not carrying it on our own. And that absolutely will come up again in the future, in a couple of chapters when we're talking about ownership and what business ownership really is in the context of godly business ownership and godly leadership. So make sure you come back for future episodes. I can't remember when that's going to be, a week or two maybe. But that topic, that concept is going to come up a lot more about what it's like to co-run, co-own a business with God and to have his support along the way. Oh gosh, this is getting longer than I thought. Okay, so I was going to make all of my notes for the introduction and chapter 1 just one episode, but I got to tell you, I'm like halfway through my notes and I can already feel this being a long episode, and I don't want these episodes to be so cumbersome and long for you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of cut this off here and pick this back up in next week's episode. We're going to be talking about a time specifically in David's story where he failed or almost failed. He almost completely lost Hobby Lobby because of some decisions made and mistakes made and things like that. And just how he reconciled all of that, what grew out of that. There's a lot of great insight in this next part of the chapter, and so I don't want to rush it and force it into this episode. So make sure that you come back here next week where we're going to keep talking about it. If you want to, go ahead and grab the book in the meantime so that you can read along, because like I said, this whole series on godly business leadership is going to be inspired by, not necessarily completely tied to, but inspired by this book, Leadership Not by the Book. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon. I got it in the Hobby Lobby store, so you might be able to just go in and pick it up right there. So I'd love to know your thoughts on what we've talked about so far. I mean, just the concept of not following the playbook, the way that, I mean, the more that I'm reading in this, I had no idea some of the things that Hobby Lobby does as a ministry, as a business, just as a highlight of what's to come, their level of giving and generosity, the way that they share the gospel within their organization and to their employees, because everybody on the outside knows that it's a Christian owned business, but that doesn't mean everybody that works there is a Christian, right? So there's just a lot of things and aspects within the framework of their corporate, of their organization that I just, you don't know about unless you dig into something like this. And I found it very interesting. So we're going to be talking about a lot of those things in the coming weeks, but also just the concept that your business, even if it's not overt, that it is a ministry. I mean, when you think about it, Hobby Lobby, they sell like crafts and stuff, right? And they sell home decor and things like that. It's not overtly a Christian business. It's not a church. It's not a Bible bookstore even, but it's clearly a ministry in the way that they work things behind the scenes and the people that they've impacted. So it shows us that it has nothing to do with what your business actually is. I can be a Trello consultant. I can be someone that helps streamline workflows and automation and process and still be a ministry at the same time. And I find that incredibly inspiring and incredibly fascinating. And so I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that? And I hope that you come back and join me for the next episode where we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this chapter, as well as just keep talking about what godly leadership actually looks like. Thanks for watching this episode all the way to the end, and I hope that you liked it, and more importantly, that you found it helpful. If you did, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with another Christian business owner that you know is going to love it as much as you did. God bless you.